No matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, here's a place where you can take comfort in the knowing that whether if you've come to stay a while or just passing through, this door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. The God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Buddhist or Jew, this door is open to you. If there's some kind of trouble or pain you're going through, know that you are not alone.
Good morning and welcome. This door is open for you. I want to welcome each and every one of you that are in this building, and we in this building want to turn and I invite you to turn and wave. We are welcoming those that are entering the virtual door, the door that allows us to connect in truth and in spirit, so wherever you are. My name is Darlene Strickland. I'm the senior minister here at Unity of the Blue Ridge, and we always like to begin our time together, whether it's a meeting or an assembly. We begin it in prayer, connecting with our intention. I invite you to turn your awareness within. We greet this day with the recognition of the gift that it is. As we turn our awareness within, we allow ourselves the opportunity to connect, to fully arrive right here, to connect with the joy in our heart, with the reason for our very life, the gift. We connect with the opportunity to be here today, to be blessed that we may be a greater blessing. And so for this time together, for this sweet opportunity, we are truly grateful. And we give thanks in the name and in the nature of all that is holy. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. Thank you all for being here this morning. If you brought a cell phone in, if you would turn that off or on airplane mode, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us with the live stream and it helps with sensitivities in the building, so I want to thank you for that. I'd like to acknowledge our children, our youth. You know, COVID has been, it's a plague, you know, and you don't hear the word plague and think of a lot of joyful things, so you have to dig deep to find the good that came out of it. And so with our children, it's really wonderful that they're beginning to get out and connect again. And so we have a Sunday school program for our children, and Reverend Barbara Ann and Reverend Gabby every week are creating experiences and opportunities for them to connect. We like to bless our children that are in Sunday school and our children that are wherever they are with a blessing that says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. So we direct that to our children today. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. We want to thank you all. Have a wonderful Sunday school experience and program. They'll be back toward the end and join us, so we thank them for being here. Every Sunday, we have the opportunity to enjoy this amazing band. Would you give it up for Richard, Dave, Joel, Peter, Joel? We are so busy. Come on, Rhoda Weaver. And today we have with us the incredibly amazing Rhoda Weaver. She's just a true gift. North Carolina is my home, but the other end of the state. And when I moved to this end of the state about 8 years ago, one day I was walking downtown the streets of Asheville, and I learned a word I didn't know until then, and it's called busker. You know what a busker is? A busker is an individual that is singing outside. And I was walking, and all of a sudden I stopped in my tracks because I heard this voice that just went through me, and I found this incredible woman. And And we became quick friends. You grew up in North Carolina too, Lumberton? She grew up in Lumberton, North Carolina, listening to the music of Amy Grant. That was kind of her music and her song, and we made a quick connection, Rhoda Weaver. And many of you know her story. A few years ago, she lost her ability to sing. The doctor said, "You'll never sing again." And she has had something rise up within her that says, "But you don't know me. You don't know me." And so she is in that journey of rediscovering and resharing. And I tell you, when she sings, there's just something powerful that comes through her. We're always blessed when she's with us. Would you welcome the amazing Rhoda Weaver?
I was born by the river. Woo! In a little tent, oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother. I say, "Brother, help me please." But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long. Now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will.
Woo! Woo! Thank you, Rhoda. Oh. Your voice baptizes me with God bumps. Yeah, there's just something beautiful. You know, Rhoda, when you selected that song, we could not have known the heartbreaking atrocities yesterday. I'm sure most of you have heard that yesterday in Buffalo, New York, a young man, an 18-year-old man, set the intention and drove 200 miles and armed himself and went into an area that was known for being predominantly African American. He sought it out. A young 18-year-old went in, and it was the largest massacre our country has experienced, unfortunately, so far this year. And it is so heartbreaking to know that the lies of separation still find their seeds in hearts. And so today we hold that in our heart, that incredible community, those individuals, those families. And also the young man and the family, to be that lost and to be that broken, to be under that kind of influence is sad. And so we hold all of that in our hearts and all of that in our prayers today. And I find it also interesting because I had asked Vernetta Vern, as we call her, is one of our co-facilitators for a group that is called BIPOC, B-I-P-O-C. It's become a recognizable acronym, BIPOC, which means Black and Indigenous People of Color. Now, at Unity of the Blue Ridge, our primary principle is there's one power, there's one life that animates all creation, and that we are all equal expressions of the one Creator. Amen? And there's beauty in the diversity of the one expression. We don't say, oh, I didn't notice your color. We say, honey, I noticed your color, and it's beautiful. And I noticed the diversity. I noticed the difference, and that is what makes us spectacularly beautiful. And so that's a core foundation here. And as a part of our mission is creating intentional spaces. So the BIPOC group, where Vern and Reverend Deborah is actually at another church with a group today sharing some of this message. One of the things they do every month is they partner with someone to have a conversations that build understandings that bridge the differences in with people of color and help us to all uncover our unconscious prejudices. How many of you know you've got some, that they're enculturated within us? And so it's not about bringing shame, it's about bringing awareness and knowing that and be able to talk about it. And so I asked Vern to share just a little bit about the BIPOC that's coming up. We've got an exciting guest that they went out and booked and to share a reading. Would you please welcome the amazing Vern?
Good morning, Unity family. Good to see you. You look beautiful. Thank you. So one of the things that you might not know is that BIPOC Raw and Deborah O'Geese was awarded the TESDEC Award for 2022. Mm-hmm. The award letter reads, "We are particularly impressed by your creation of the forum BIPOC Raw in giving Black, Indigenous, and people of color the opportunity to speak to ways in which systematic racism affects their lives." I just am so proud of Deborah for creating BIPOC Raw and for inviting me to be a part of facilitating it with her. And this month, we are so excited. On May the 25th at 7:15, our guests on BIPOC Raw will be Dr. Betty Kilby Baldwin and Phoebe Kilby, a Black woman and a white woman, cousins, one a descendant of the enslavers, and the other a descendant of the slaves. And they wrote a book called Cousins, really well written, really, really wonderful, incredible story. And I hope that you'll tune in. This is a really special conversation that we continue to have. And we hope to see you on Zoom for BIPOC Raw. Inspiration. My inspiration. Resisting what is, pushing, then pulling, struggling, because I don't want this. I hear surrender. I can't do that. I hear let go. How? Give up? give up, I stop fighting and take a breath. I feel spirit move. I have such fear of losing control. Breathe deeply. I realize I'm not alone. Ancestors are here. Say, girl, let go. Pick your head up. Lift your eyes. See the help. Look up. My breath is lifting me. Spirit is lifting me. Ancestors lifting me. They say, you here to lift. Teach others to lift. Rise up. Carry on. Lift up.
Beautiful. Let it be.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, oh, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. The broken-hearted people living in the world agree there will be an answer, let it be. But though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. Yeah, there will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, oh, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. There is still a light that shines on me. Shine on till tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Let it be. Oh, there will be an answer. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Yeah, let it be. Let it be. Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be. Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be.
Oh, Rhoda Weaver. Yeah, stay up a minute. Rhoda. While you're still standing, take this opportunity to extend your blessing to one another. Rhoda, that was awesome. Welcome each and every one of you for being here. Thank you to our band. They'll be back in a few minutes. And take this opportunity to again welcome our live stream. Welcome and thank you for tuning in. Wow. Let it be. Let it be. You know, that song, Let It Be, was written by who? Paul McCartney. In 1968, and a lot of people don't know this, but because it's become such an anthem, but in 1968, the Beatles had their very successful White Album. All the Beatles were married except Paul. Paul McCartney was finding he was spending a little bit too much time with drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and that it was taking a toll on him, and he was still living as a bachelor in his pad in London, and he was really struggling one night. And he just, was wanting, he was missing his mom. His mother had died, and he was thinking, I want to get married, and I really want to change my life and be like my mates are. I want a home and have all that. And he said that night as he went to sleep, he had a dream, and in that dream, his mother, and Paul McCartney's mother's name is Mary, that his mother, Mary, came to him, and he said that she had died when he was younger, and he'd almost forgotten what she looked like, but in that dream, she was so luminous, and she came to him and said, Paul, let it be. That's what his mother Mary said to him, and he said when he wrote that morning, he sat down and he wrote the whole song. And it has become such an anthem. I didn't even realize. I thought it was speaking about the mother in the Bible, Mary, that Mary. It's really become an anthem of the energy of the great mother. Because all of us know what it feels like when you're in that state of angst. And something inside of you says, let it be. Just like what Vern read, let it be. Well, today I want us to enter into an invitation to let it be. And I'm using a catchy phrase to help you remember it, hopefully. And the phrase is, give up, lift up, look up. Except I just said them in the wrong order. So the phrase is, I'll be going to my notes now. Give up, look up, lift up. Would you say that with me? Give up, look up, lift up. When I asked Vern to select a reading and she texted me on Friday with what she read, I'm like, oh my God, that's my sermon in a nutshell. So the fact that what she picked is, it's really, we're tuning into the same thing, to give up, look up, lift up. What does that mean? Well, I believe that we're going to look at a parable very briefly and then break it down that really contains that as a formula. You know, we like a formula or a recipe. We like steps because we can put them into practice. And if you dig deep in a lot of the parables, whether they be Christian parables, Jewish parables, Islamic parables, if you dig deep in the spiritual parables, you'll find these nuggets or formulas. So we're going to look at one today, and it has to do with inspiration. Because the whole point of give up, look up, lift up is that you may be connected and spiritually inspired. How many of you could use a dose of spiritual inspiration? And you know, when we say spiritual inspiration, it's kind of redundant because the Latin word inspirare. What that word really means is to breathe into. That inspiration is to have the breath of life flowing in and through you. And it's already doing that. The good news is if you're alive, you're here for a purpose, and the breath of life is flowing through you. And yet there are times we say, well, I really feel inspired. And there's times, I sure know for myself, I've said, I am uninspired. I've thought about it. There's times I feel like inspiration meanders and can even get lost. And we seem to be more connected at times. And we are when we consider that as a feeling. Today I want to open it up a little bit and ask us to consider inspiration as an experience, the experience of being in the breath of life as part of the flow of life. It's the experience of being in the breath and in the flow of life. And as long as you're here, you cannot be disconnected. So we can nurture our awareness and our receptivity to what we would call the positive natural side effects of feeling inspired. We can nurture inspiration and cultivate it in our life. Inspirare, inspiration, it gives us meaning and motivation. The thing about inspiration is when you're inspired, it really enlightens the way you see things, your perception. When you're coming from a place of inspiration, you're more open to see the gift and the blessing. You're more open to discover the possibilities in a state that feels inspired. Inspiration is a continuing kind of opening and awakening. And so again, beyond the feelings, it is the state of being aware that we are always connected to the great flow of life. And the good news is the flow of life is never stagnant. The flow of life will never run dry. And listen to this one, the flow of life, it's not impartial. It doesn't differentiate between, the scriptures say that it rains on the just and the unjust. The sun shines, the rain, the flow of life is equally available to all. The question then becomes, how present and available am I to this continual flow of life? They say the two greatest fire starters on earth are inspiration and desperation. Amen? That if the universe needs to move you, if something needs to happen, the two greatest fire starters are inspiration or desperation. And life has built within it some desperate times. There are times of desperation. And yet there's also many times that we work ourselves into a state of desperation where we could be transcending in a place that is much more inspired. So we want to look at both of those. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate. It's what's motivating me here, inspiration or desperation. This week someone told me about a little boy. They said they were taking their son to Chuck E. Cheese to a birthday party. And I guess he was like 4 or 5 years old in the back seat, and he was so excited. He had his gift. They're going to Chuck E. Cheese, and they're almost there when they came up on an accident. There had been a minor car accident in the other lane, and cars were all backed up. And usually the mom, anytime they would encounter an accident, the mom would say, let's send our prayers. And before she could even say that this time, the little boy said, Mom, let's send our prayers. And her heart just filled up, and she said, well, honey, that's beautiful. You say the prayer. And he said, Dear Lord, don't let these cars block the entrance to Chuck E. Cheese. He had no qualms about what his priorities were. And so, when we talk about inspiration and desperation, when we talk about being open into the flow of life, what it really boils down to is it's going to ask us, what do you want here? What is it that you really want? What is your goal here? So let's look at that in the light of what it means to nurture our ability to be inspired, to be consciously connected and a part of this flow of life. And how do we do that? Through give up, look up, and lift up. The parable that I'm pulling from is found in all 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And a version of it actually shows up 6 different times, told different ways. The details are not exactly the same. And most often the one that is quoted you hear from Matthew, and sometimes it's kind of like the Christmas story where we take pieces from different ones and put them together and make a whole story, and this happens a lot here. But it's called the story of the loaves and fishes. And just the essence of the story goes like this. Jesus, his popularity was gaining. And he had gone to a place where he wanted to have some time to come apart for a while, but it says a multitude showed up. They were hungry for his teaching. They were hungry for his healing. They wanted to know and have time with him. And so as the story goes, over 5,000 men, plus women, plus their children showed up. And as the story goes, Jesus spent the day healing and teaching and talking to them. So whoever's telling the story, they're using hyperbole. They're trying to exaggerate to really make a point to say a whole lot of people showed up unexpectedly. And Jesus gave himself, he spent the whole day. And as it began to get about what we call in the South supper time, the disciples got hungry. They'd been there all day, and it says that the disciples went over to Jesus and said, Jesus, these people have come a long distance, and we're in a remote place, and we don't have food to feed them. So we should send them home so they can all get food. And the thing that Jesus did, and is he turned, and this comes from Matthew 14, verse 16, he said to the disciples, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. And so the disciples looked at each other and they probably said something like, is the heat bothering this man? I mean, there's 12 of us, there's 15 or more thousand of them. He knows we don't have any money. He knows he's telling us to do something. This must be a joke. Now, this is setting us up for a teaching. He told them to do something. And so then he says, well, what do you have? And so they had managed to find one little boy who had brought some food with him, and the little boy had 5 little loaves, probably like 5 little biscuits, and 5 little pieces of bread and 2 pieces of fish. And so they said, yeah, but Jesus, we were able to come up with this, but this is not even enough for us, so we need to send these people away. And he basically said, no, I'm going to show you how to do this. And he said, have all the people gather in groups and sit down. And so they gathered them in small groups and told them to sit all down across the plain. Now, oftentimes, this is where people that translate this will say, and then Jesus said a prayer and boom, food appeared for everyone. But the scriptures don't say that. And the danger is that we place the power in the sky and we take ourselves off the hook. Jesus told the disciples, you do something. He was making a point with them. He was wanting them to discover something. So when he sat them down, he knew that people didn't travel that far without something. Be honest, how many of you have a snack on your person or in the car? Some mints, something, gum. Those folks were accustomed to traveling distances. They had some food. And so what happened, this was the first crowdfunding event ever started. This was the beginning of potluck, if you ever wondered where it came from. Jesus said, let me show you how it's done. He sat them down, and then he looked up, and he invited everybody, take out what you've got. What do you have? And people began to share, and it said as he blessed, others were invited in to put their stuff into circulation, bring it out. And so the first crowdfunding, the first potluck, we could say, happened right there in that story. And then he makes a point at the end in saying, when it was all said and done, they collected more than the little boy had. They even had leftovers. Now, the heart of that, there's many, many layers and meanings in that story. But there are 3 things we want to draw from today. And how do we keep ourselves in the flow of life? How do we keep inspiration circulating? How do we give up, look up, and lift up? Which are 3 things that he asked them to do. The first things he was asking the disciples to do is they had to give up their ideas that it was not enough. They had to give up their ideas that it was impossible. They also had to give up the idea that they had to generate the food themselves. You see, they needed to create the space for the resources to appear. You see, there's a big difference there. They had to give up some things. I call that, we have to learn how to give up without giving up. Let go, surrender, give up without giving up. And we do it every day, all the time, and don't even recognize it. I'll give you an example. My day off is Monday, and this past Monday I was working in my yard. And over the past year or so, I've had a creeping juniper bush that is slowly, there's maybe about 10% living. And I thought, I got to pull that thing out. So I'm allergic to those. I put on my gloves and my big clippers, and it's a while to take these creeping, they're deep and big roots, and I worked for hours cutting those roots until I was down to the core of it, and they were pretty big, and I was getting tired. And so I had an idea. I went to Lowe's, and I bought a chainsaw. And I came back home, and I opened that box, and some assembly was required. So now I'm looking at a heavy motor thing, and a blade that was really sharp, and it was like loose, and I started reading directions, and I'm like, whoa, I have to attach it, and I have to get it just right, and I have to sharpen it, and I have to oil it. I put that thing back in the box. I said, this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. See, I had to give up without giving up. Amen? It happens all the time. You do it all the time. And because I know you're going to ask me, so I did everything I could. I got it as small as I can. And then Wednesday, my superhero partner came in and borrowed a saw like this from the neighbor and a shovel, and she got it done. But I had to give up, but not give up. You see, if we can take this practice as a spiritual practice, it becomes very powerful. This past Friday, every year we do a board and staff training, and we did this past Friday, and we had someone working with us, and they asked the question, they said, are there any sacred cows in the church? How many of you know what a sacred cow is? A sacred cow is something like maybe Sister Bessie donated an organ back in 1934. And it used to serve a great purpose, and it takes a lot of the stage, and it doesn't even play anymore. But we never questioned, why is it still getting all that space? And so we understood that the question is saying, are there things in our consciousness, are there things in the ministry, are there things in our programs, in the way we work, that are still taking up space for no valid reason today? That we need to be willing to give up without giving up. But actually, when you give up, it's an opportunity to really get a hold of, what is my purpose here? What is it? You see, we give up the old ideas. We're willing to really spend some time questioning our assumptions, questioning our habits, questioning whatever we're doing in a routine kind of way. We can give it up without giving up and connect with that purpose even greater. In thinking about this give up without giving up, I was reminded recently, just a couple of months back, I had the pleasure of going back to Maui. I used to serve as a senior minister on Unity of Maui, and I hadn't been in 12 years, and so I had the chance to go to the church and speak, and they've rearranged the office, but I walked into the room that used to be my office, and it was just a sweet feeling. And I had a memory, I think it's something I had forgotten. In my first weeks there was a day that finally my packages arrived. I had to ship them over, and I had books and ministry materials that finally arrived. And they were stacked up in my office, dusty from the trip. And so I've had on shorts and like just a simple t-shirt, and I was in my office, nothing else scheduled, just putting my materials and books and supplies away. When a guy stepped up to the door, and I could tell by his shirt he was a serviceman. He had a logo shirt on, and he was there doing some sort of routine maintenance. And he said, "Hi, are you the new minister?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't usually dress like this, but I just got my stuff." And I'm putting it up, and he looked at me and he said, welcome to Maui. This island will either embrace you or spit you up, chew you out. And I said, well, thank you. And so I began to engage him in a conversation. It's like, well, what's your experience been like? And he said, well, actually a little of both. And so without even sitting, he came in a little bit closer, and I could tell he wanted to talk. And so I completely stopped. And he said, my wife and I were both traveling teachers. We had one son. We loved to travel and teach. And we retired as soon as we got our son through college. And this was always our dream. We moved to Maui. And we both loved to swim and play tennis, and we had been here about 2 years when she was diagnosed with cancer. And so he went on to tell me, he said that in the past 3 years, or the past few years, he said, I lost my wife, I lost my house, I lost my cars, and my son joined the Marines, and I'm worried about him. And he said, I started this business actually out of necessity. And right in that moment, I got it. I got the preciousness of what was happening, and I began to go in inner prayer. Guide me. This man is sharing something very precious. And the thing that really struck me is he said, we used to swim and play tennis every day, and now it's not the same. He said, I used to sing, and now I can't find my voice. He said, I actually used to believe in God, and now I'm not so sure. And then he said, I don't mean to throw my burdens your way. And he asked, can I help you with any of these boxes? And so I let him move some stuff around. But then he kept talking. And he was there probably a good hour and a half that day. He helped me unpack some stuff, but he talked the whole time. And I got to listen to a lot of what he said. And he said things like this: I should be able to get over this. I should get my drive back. I never should have made the financial mistakes I made. I should be thankful that I was married to the love of my life. All of these I should be. And I should be thankful that I was married to the love of my life, and I've already had that love. I shouldn't want anymore. He said that several times. And finally I said, sometimes we have to give up without giving up. And he got what I meant, because he said, do you mean like the serenity prayer? He said, my dad was in 12-step program, and I'm used to the serenity prayer. I said, actually, that's a good example. But I said, things have happened in your life. You've had to give up the life you knew. You've had to let go of those things. But life then says, how do you do that without giving up? And I said, I've heard you say several times, and you light up when you talk about your wife, that she was the love of your life. And you've also said, and basically, that that's it. And I said, perhaps one thing to consider is you have had the love of your life. You still do in your heart, and you could love again, that it doesn't have to be an either or. You could have that and this. And he just went, And we talked a little more, and I did much more listening, but, and so he eventually left. But he kept showing up in my prayers. I would hold him in my heart. I'd hold him in prayers. It was about 2 years later, one day I was walking down a popular beach, and I looked up. I had on a hat. I don't think he ever recognized me, but I recognized him, and he had on one of his logo shirts. He was walking on the beach with a woman, holding hands, and his whole countenance was different. And I thought, somehow he did it. He gave it up without giving up, and he allowed some newness. That's what it means to give up without giving up. That's what Jesus was trying to help the disciples see, that when we bump into our limited thinking, when we bump into placing a period that's just the way it is, when the universe is saying, I'm alive and well, and I am making all things new, that we can give up. And the way that we begin to do that is the second step, and that is to look up. Now, when we say look up, I'm not saying that because God is on a throne up in the sky. I'm not saying that at all. To me, God is everywhere. But there's something very powerful about literally pausing to look up. Tia and I went to lunch on Easter. We were out at a restaurant on Easter, and we were talking when we were waiting for our food, and we noticed a couple sitting beside us, 2 couples, four adults, and they were older. They had to have been in their mid-60s or older. And the funny thing about it is all 4 adults were like this on their phone. Now, we see that a lot. If it had been 4 teenagers, I probably wouldn't even noticed it. But they were 4 gray-haired individuals. One of them had a cane even, all on that. And it wasn't just for a moment. We kept looking, and they were head buried down like this. And we actually had a conversation about it and said, wow, it's really happening everywhere. And when I was thinking this week about look up, that we need to look up, I discovered that right now in the United States, on average, we spend 4 hours and 40 minutes every day like this. That's a lot of time. Head bent, eyes down. Psychologists are even calling it now embodied cognition, that we are embodying a way and a state of being, head tucked, drawn in like this. We pull our energy in. We make ourselves smaller. There's a whole body of new research about it, because as we have this embodied cognition, the question is it making us forget that we need to look up and open up to new ideas and newer ways of being? As a part of that study, they contrasted it. They looked at, when do people tend to do like this, really open up? And the number one place they found was crossing the finish line. Whether it was an Olympian or a Special Olympian, whether it was an individual who was sighted or blind, whether it were male, female, child, adult, differing abilities, different countries around the world, people who have never even seen what other people do, when they cross that finish line, they go like this. And so what they were saying is that there's something very powerful that we should be taking every day to look up. What Jesus was telling the disciples, that when we get stuck in how something is, he was saying, look up. To look up means open up so that you can discover something new. Peter Gollop, one of our members, created these beautiful wings. And he did that because he tends to sit in the back, and he had a conversation with me, and he said, Reverend Darlene, when everybody's looking at you, I'm often looking up. And I didn't take it personal. He said, there's such a beautiful space up here. And he said, sometimes we need something that will intentionally help us draw our awareness up. And in this very room, something was manifested and created to help us look up. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, when his wife Myrtle was healed of tuberculosis, he wanted to know how that happened. And he got himself so confused studying so many different religious paths. His famous words were, in the midst of all of this babble, I'm going to go to headquarters. And so what he did, and there's pictures of him, for a solid hour every day, he would sit in a chair, close his eyes, bring his awareness in, but not tucked in. He brought his awareness in to discover all the spaciousness of his being. Through that time, he cultivated a prayer that he would say over and over, and it said, I am now in the presence of pure being. I am immersed in the holy wisdom of life and love and wisdom. I acknowledge thy presence and thy power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase my mortal limitations. And from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to thy perfect law. For an hour he would sit, that I am now in the presence of pure being. He was cultivating an ability to look up. To look up also means to look beyond. And so we're talking about what it means to give up without giving up. We're talking about creating practices every day that allow you to look up, to open yourself to new ideas, to new ways of being, to new experiences of connectedness. Richard, would you give me that song? We give up, we look up, and then we lift up. It's often said in the scriptures to lift up. Jesus lifted up his eyes. The scripture says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all unto me. If you've been around a person with high positive energy, there's literally something called entrainment that we can be, they help us lift our energy. Haven't you noticed if you're around and in an atmosphere that's uplifting, it lifts you. If you're in an atmosphere that's draining, it drains you. And so to become a presence that I know when I need to lift my spirit, sometimes I don't even like to be with my own self. Amen? I'm like, self, get over yourself. We got to lift ourselves up. Music is the number one thing that does it for me, and nature. But to lift yourself up, the fastest way to lift your energy is to intentionally lift another. And I believe our world could benefit right now by a room of spirit lifters. And you know, sometimes we make it so complex and we think we have to do something great. But let me tell you this. When you're in the grocery store, when you encounter a person, if you will take a moment and give them your undivided attention for 30 seconds and genuinely mean it and smile at them and just see the love that is already flowing through them, do you realize that was a great gift you gave? There's a lot of ways and things that we can do if we set out to lift our spirit and to lift the spirit of others. Final story, true story, this is pre-COVID. One day, Tia and I were out at the Biltmore Estate. We were yearly pass holders, and sometimes we just go out and walk the grounds. It's those of you that are going to be visiting here in October, I hope you'll take the time. It's a great place, just beautiful to go and walk. And there's a shop that's like a gardening shop. I like to go in that place, and we had gone in. And I was looking at a plant and wondering how well it would do. And a lady saw me and she came over and we struck up a conversation. And I felt it. There was just a peacefulness about her. She was gentle. She was very helpful. And I said, you know, I live in Mills River and I'm wondering. And she said, oh, that's a lovely area. I used to live there. And I said, really? And where do you live now? And she said, well, my husband and I had a small farm and I lost him a couple of years ago. She said, when I lost my husband, I couldn't take care of it myself, so I had to downsize, and now I live blah, blah, blah. But she loved the area. But the thing that she said that I wrote in my journal when I got home, because I never wanted to forget it, she said, yeah, after I lost him, it was hard. And she said, after about a year, I knew it was time. And she said, I knew I had to get out and do something that would allow the life to come back in me. Isn't that profound? I had to do something that would allow the life to come back in me. And she said, so I love flowers, and I used to be a teacher. I love to talk to people. And she said, so I love working here. I get to work with plants, and I get to talk to people, and I help them. And it's helped the life come back in me. Can you see how she intentionally placed herself in the flow of life by saying, I got to put myself somewhere where I can do what I love and let the life flow back in me. Perhaps Howard Thurman said it best when he said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that, because the world needs people who have come alive. This week, are you willing to grapple with this a little bit, to play with it? What would it look like for you? Where are you being called to give up without giving up? And then to look up and become available, to remember your connectedness, to ask to have the eyes to see what are the resources that are right in front of me that I can go ahead and put into motion. And then to lift up, to intentionally lift your own spirit and lift others up. If we would all do that, magic will begin to happen. As I was working with this song began to flow, and I want to share this with you, and it goes like this. I lift my spirit when I look up, and I lift my spirit when I bow down, and I lift my spirit when I set myself free, and I my spirit, and spirit lifts me. I invite you to close your eyes. Holy Spirit, we acknowledge the one presence, the one power, the one activity that we call life. We see it in a snail or a turtle dove. We see it in the sky, in the moon, in the sun. We see it in the newborn baby. We see it in the aged hand of the elder. We see it in our bones, in our skin. We feel it in our heart. There's one life that is the substance from which all creation is manifest. And no matter the creation, it carries with it the substance. We are the substance, the essence, the very image and likeness of the Creator. And as such, the creation is never apart from, never cut off from the great flow of life. The intelligence that would cause a bird to go for hundreds of miles to return to a nest. The intelligence that will allow a parent to find its newborn penguin in the midst of hundreds. The intelligence that drives the butterfly is the same intelligence, and yet perhaps in a greater level of consciousness within our being. It's an intelligence that flows from the divine mind. And our brain, our thoughts, are a vessel, a vehicle for this divine mind to be contained and understood and embodied and expressed. To begin to contemplate the miracle of life is to begin to open yourself to the flow of life. To understand that inspiration is the very breath of life. It is your breath. It is never far from you. And that whatever you seek, a fresh idea, a new understanding, whatever you seek can be revealed through the great mind into your understanding. So our job becomes getting out of the way, becoming available. Jesus said you can't put fresh wine, fresh ideas in an old container that is set in its way, because the old container can't expand and adapt. He was trying to tell us that we need to create a way every day to give up all that has come before without giving up the gifts, without giving up the focus, without giving up the heart that is bent on knowing the mind of God. So as a people together today, we give up all that has served its purpose. And we look up and become available. And the becoming available is the returning and the remembrance that I am an inlet and outlet to this great flow of life. May I be available with fresh eyes and fresh heart and willingness. May I be available. I look up, I ask, I seek, I find. And I will lift up. I will do my best every day to lift my attitude, to lift my words and my thoughts. I will do my best every day to lift my outlook. I will do my best every day to intentionally do something that would lift and encourage those with whom I interact. I'm born to do this. I know how to do this in my own way. So I lift my my spirit when I look up, and I lift my spirit when I bow down, and I lift my spirit when I set myself free. Oh, I will lift my spirit, and I know Spirit lifts me. I lift my spirit when I look up. I lift my spirit when I bow down. And I lift my spirit when I set myself free. And so I will lift my spirit, and I will know that Spirit is lifting me. So it is. So I invite you to please stand and just to turn to one another and say, I see you lifted in spirit. I see you lifted in spirit. I see you lifted in spirit. We turn to our live streamers and we tell you, I see you lifted in spirit. And so this week, together, we will give up, look up, and lift up. One more time. I will give up, look up, and lift up. And they work in whatever you order you put them in. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Oh, I want to thank you so much. Come on up, Rhoda. Give up, look up, lift up. I want to invite Michael Wackerly, our prayer chaplain, to come up, and we have one of our board members that are going to be making their way up front as well. I want to remind you that we really are a community of prayer. We have this wooden box that sits towards the back. If any of you that are here would like to literally put in a prayer request in the box, we'll hold it in prayer. Those of you online, if you send us an email or if you put it in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, we hold those in prayer. And not only do we hold them, but we send them to Silent Unity. And so we are a community and we are holding you in prayer. We also are a community that acknowledges the gifts that are right here and among us. If you're on our board or on our staff, would you please stand? I want to thank you. They dedicated a whole day this week to training. There's so much that this group of people, Marty and Christy, are back outside behind the door. Some of them are in the sound booth. But I just want to thank you all. Thank you so much for what you do. Our board members help us to shepherd our resources. Joe Wegner, one of our amazing board members, yes. This man never wants praise or recognition, but many people around him call him Boss Man because he's the most loving. We have a group called Habitat for Unity. They come together a couple of Fridays, and he will always find a job for you in a fun and a loving way. But we often find him on the lawnmower, on the roof. There's no telling where you'll find him taking care of something. Today, he's holding this blue box that symbolizes the resources that flow through this community. If this ministry blesses your heart and you are willing to support it, these blue boxes are around. For those on live stream, you should have a number where you can text or go to our Facebook. I want to thank you for that. So thanks to both of you. I also want to find out if Ellen Winter and Barry Shepard, if you two are in here, would you stand? I think I've seen Barry and Ellen, both of you here. Many of you know that October 7th through 9th, we are having our first ever homecoming retreat. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where we're extending a special invitation for those of you that are joining virtually. We now have members that are joining virtually. 2 weeks ago, I gave a shout out to Blessing in Africa, and she sent me an email and said, "How did you know I was watching?" She had literally stayed and was watching us live stream on the service. But we've got people that are wanting to come in and see this place together. And so we're creating a retreat of activities Friday, Saturday, and then a wonderful celebration on Sunday. There'll be a concert that Friday night. So the first call out is this. You're going to get the invitation to the retreat. We're hoping our local people will come together as well. It's really going to be a wonderful retreat again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, October 7, 8, 9. But the first call out before we open up the retreat is host homes. If there are any of you that have a place dedicated in your home that you would like to create an opportunity for, let's say we've got folks from California coming, we've got folks from Tennessee, we've got folks from Colorado. If they're interested in a host home, and if you're interested in providing one, Ellen Winter and Barry, if you'd stand again, they'll be out in the foyer, and we have some forms. They're online, so we have a very organized way of doing that, so hopefully nobody gets, like one time I stayed in a house that had 3 cats. Hello, I'm allergic to cats, and they all slept in the room with me. The next day, I got up to talk like this. So there's certain things we want to make sure work. So I want to thank you all, the retreat planning team, for your work, and they'll be out in the lobby. Rev Christie will have some of those forms available for us. We want to thank you for that. Rhoda Weaver, it wouldn't be right if we didn't end this with having her sing one more time. She's got a beautiful song for us that she's going to share that says, "Keep your eye on the prize, hold on."
All right, this is the one chance y'all get to get up and clap and move around, so don't miss it. Paul and Silas bound in jail, had no money for the go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Paul and Silas began to shout, doors popped open, they all walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Well, the only chains that we can stand are the chains of hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Got my hand on the freedom plow, wouldn't take nothing from my journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on, hold on, hold on. The only chains that we can stand are the chains of hand in hand. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Got my hand on the freedom plow. Wouldn't take nothing from my journey now. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Ah, yes. Rhoda Weaver, that was awesome. Thank you. All right, parents, young people, do you want to come up front as we're saying this closing prayer together? Or you may already even be together, but come on up, parents. Let us bless you with your children. As we bring our time together, we use this prayer by James Dillett Freeman that says, "The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well." Give up without giving up. Look up and lift up. May you have a great week. Blessings. Would you sing us out?
Paul and Silas found in jail, had no money for to go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on.